This is Coder Radio, episode 30 for December 31st, 2012. Hi everyone, you're listening to Coder Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
We said back!
We're back! Actually, we never left to the download audience.
True.
Yeah,
it feels like I haven't heard from you in ages, though.
I actually agree. Like, I was thinking this morning, actually I was thinking yesterday when I was finishing last, you know, my immediate next thought is, okay, what's my next task? And besides editing last, it's Coder Radio. And I thought, I haven't talked to him in so long. I think we're doing a show. Like, of course we are. But, you know, that thought just goes through my mind.
Yeah, I had the same thing. I'm like, wait a minute. Did we say it was canceled or are we doing it?
No, we're hardcore. We're hardcore. And actually, as it turns out, guys like you and I, we tend to have a little more free time around these times because our clients end up closing up for the holidays.
Silly clients with their families.
I know, right? I know. You know what's so funny about that is every time I go to a client and I have to leave for a family reason, they just give me the dirtiest look. But then they always tell me how much about family they are. So I say today's episode we dedicate to the family.
It's all about the family.
So what are we talking about today?
Nothing.
Oh, well, I can keep talking about family then.
So, but it's going to be a long show.
Oh, big show today, huh?
We have Hoopla, and it's my favorite kind of Hoopla.
Oh,
it's brought to us by the letter Rage.
Oh, Hoopla, brought to you by the letter Rage. Well, before we get to the Hoopla, should we do the feedback?
Let's do it.
Okay.
So speaking of Rage.
Yeah.
I may have misstated or not been clear enough with how the Ouya works. A number of Ouya fans were very upset that I said all games have to be free. All games have to have a free component, which can be a trial. It has to be a substantial trial. You can charge for the game.
What does a substantial trial mean? Does that mean like you're going to have to code something specifically that's...
No, I mean, but, you know, a normal trial, right? The first 2 levels or something.
Okay.
The thing is, nobody's submitted anything publicly to the store yet, so we don't know how they're interpreting their guidelines, but... I mean, one presumes they'll be reasonable. I'm sure a level would be enough.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't expect craziness. Having said that, of the developers that are publishing to the Ouya, there is a lot of free-to-play action going on.
To me, this... I don't mean to interrupt your train of thought, but I just really want to get this out while I still kind of have it in my mind. It seems to me that this is more about marketing and drawing buzz for the platform, because if we were to go just by raw data, the most successful app store to date that makes millions of dollars does not offer any form of free trial at all. It is only paid apps or free, and that is the only option. And so far, for what, 4 years running, unchallenged, they are the most profitable app store that's ever existed. So I don't know just on its face why when launching something new you wouldn't at least look at that. Now, I'm not saying there aren't improvements to be made there, but it strikes me that potentially it's more about marketing than it is about actual end user experience. Now, maybe I'm wrong on that, and I hope I am, but if that is the case, then then you're making the developers jump through a lot of hoops for a gimmick.
Well, I'd say it's a little more than a gimmick. I mean, I actually think it's good overall, right? Because they're pushing developers in a direction that's more likely to keep them in business, given the current state of the market.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, I mean, it is something developers should probably try to embrace.
They might not like it. I mean, for example, you know, in my Ouya evaluations, if I do go forward into production with it, a paid game was never a discussion. That's why, even though I knew it was a trial, I just been talking about it as free to play, because to me, that's the only way that makes sense with this device.
I look at this and I think, you know, I'm one of those guys where a lot of times, because I don't have a lot of free time, I get the demo and I never really go beyond the demo.
Yeah,
because I play for a little bit.
I'm horrible with that.
Yeah. And see, when you're talking $2.99, when you're talking $5, I'm I'm
It's
I'm
it's
gonna
easy
I'm
to
just
buy
gonna
something at
yeah,
$5.
exactly. I'm still gonna buy that, even if I think I'll only play an hour or two's worth. So I don't know if I agree it's a big, huge problem. However, I have met people, and I bet we have people that listen, and I respect this as a decision. There's just some people who say, I'm not going to pay for stuff. I'm just not going to pay. It's digital. It's not real. I'm okay. I'm okay paying 5, 10, 15, 30, 60 bucks for a physical media that I can put on a shelf, but something that's digital, that's attached to some console, I'd rather not throw down money for that. I don't know where the Ouya is going to be in 10 years, so maybe I prefer it's all free, and I totally can see that point of view.
Right. I mean, of course, in its most extreme case, if no one ever paid for software, there would not be a lot of. I mean, a lot of software would go away.
I
But I think the
feel
point
like
is, where's the Ouya going to be in X years is a really good point.
and I feel like the other thing it's going to do is if it's successful, it's gonna
It'll get copied.
it's gonna get
by some-
copied, and it's gonna spread around this culture of nagging in apps that constantly, and we're already starting to see it, especially on iOS, where everything's gated
Yep.
behind a paywall inside the app. So you buy the app or you download this free app, like freaking Star Wars Angry Birds. You download that for $4 or $5, and then you get it, and then there's 2 or 3 things, maybe 3 or 4 things in the app that are locked behind a paywall, unless now this is how it is on Android. It's not like this on iOS as much, but that kind of experience is just going to become more and more common if the developer has to make up for lost revenue in some other way. And that sounds naggy. It sounds like a bad experience.
This is a lot like the web app Gmail style, trade your data for a free application argument. Consumers in the market have shown which way they're going, and they're not going to go back to the way it was. So, I mean, I don't like it either. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying reality is one thing. An ideal world is very different.
Very true. And I maybe I just need to change my frame of perspective. Like, maybe this is the perfect kind of model for a guy like me who doesn't always necessarily get my money's worth out of these games, and now I can just pay for as much as I'm going to play.
Yeah, see, I'm less concerned with the model for the Ouya, and I'm more concerned with the Steam box.
How so?
So outside of, the super nerd community, I don't see too many people given the choice between an Xbox, an Ouya, and a Steam box. And let's say they're price sensitive, so they don't want the 720, is what I'm talking about, whatever it's going to be called.
Right.
They go with either of the boxes.
The latest rumor I believe is Xbox 8, and I'm not kidding. Yeah, Xbox 8.
That dreadful news aside, let's just think, who would... I mean, me, personally, just as a gamer, I'm more likely to pick up a Steam product because I know Steam and I have a significant library already of Steam titles.
Right.
So I just don't know. My concern is going to be a market share thing. The cost of developing a game is very high. Is it worth it to focus on the Ouya?
Oh, okay. I thought you were about to say that about the Steam box, and man, was I going to rage all over this microphone. I mean,
no, so it's the Steam box that's cooled me on the Ouya.
And what's interesting is some of our feedback has been, you guys are ridiculous over the Steam box. It's not going to go anywhere. It's the Ouya. People like in our audience, in a lot of ways, are more bullish about the Ouya than they are the Steam box.
But I don't think either of them is going to go mainstream. But again, for an indie, you don't need the main. You need a small niche,
right,
to make what amounts to enough money for you.
I think the Steam box, out of all of them, has not just the potential, but has good potential to go big.
If they can get it in retail, that's the big kicker. I know Ouya's already making deals.
See, the thing is, and I think as just people, just regular Joes, we don't think about this very often. The brand behind Valve gets them in the door at Best Buy. It gets them in the door everywhere. That Valve brand is so respected. Like Ouya, who's Ouya? Who are these guys? What, you got funded on Kickstarter? That's cute. You know what Valve is? Valve is a profit-generating company who is one of the most respected companies in gaming. Who do you think's going to get in the door there?
So what I'm afraid of with the Ouya is what happens to some of the cheaper Android tablets in Best Buy. First of all, normal folks don't know about Kickstarter. Will it just seem like a very, like the proverbial cheap Chinese Android tablet that no one buys, and then they ask the clerk, "Do you have a Samsung or an iPad?" Right? They're a no name.
Right. Because that's my point. Yeah.
And in retail, with Joe consumer and perhaps parents buying this for their children, I feel like a name. I feel like it's going to matter, and I feel like retail is going to be the differentiator.
I'll give you another example. Aviator's just bringing it up in the chat room. So take Dylan and fast forward him 10 years, right? So say he's 13, 14 years old.
Sure.
And I'm, we could, you could have a scenario where there's contention for resources in the house between the computer and the TV. And the idea of the Steam box being that I could be playing on the computer and then say Dylan needs to get on the computer to do homework, and I could pick up and go over to the TV. While it's not going to be a universal experience that's going to be good across all games, there's going to be, like, the games I'm playing right now, these side-scrolling indie games, those are going to work great on the TV. Those are going to work great. In fact, you should be playing with a controller on the computer right now, right?
Probably.
And with Steam Cloud, man, I'm going to, all right, yeah. Dylan, well, here, let me get up. You can work on the computer. I'm going to walk over into the living room, sit down, and I'm going to resume my game. And you cannot discount the value that will have to households everywhere. I mean, that's one of the reasons the Wii U is doing well, is because that second screen capability of the Wii U is actually.
So I have another little tangent on this. I have my little Paul. He's going to be 6 soon. I've tried to introduce him to games. He doesn't really understand controllers at all.
Yeah.
Because he's been playing since he was a baby tablet games.
Yeah, the touch, yeah.
And the games he plays are very different to what I played at his age. Granted, that was, very, very different time.
Back in my day.
Back in my day, the oscilloscope. It's going to be interesting to see when this generation grows up, are they going to want a big, beefy console? Or are they going to want something perhaps more conservative like the Ouya? Or like some kind of, Apple TV or Google TV with whatever. Because that has to be coming next.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be interesting. Because I could see Dylan and Paul getting online, competing on Angry Birds on something very cheap.
Yeah.
On a $50 box.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it is a great advice for parents to get their kids if they're comfortable with the game, selection. But, I mean, I want them all to succeed. Like, I don't want the Steam box to win at the expense of the Ouya. And maybe we're being short-sighted. Maybe the market is big enough to sustain both these products. Different strokes. I mean, the Steam box is probably, I think we can probably bet money the Steam box is going to be higher-end hardware, because the Ouya's, it's limited.
So that would be the thing. If the Ouya's $100 or more cheaper.
Oh, yeah. Isn't the Ouya supposed to, aren't they targeting like $99?
$99 is what it costs.
Yeah, there's no way the Steam box can be that cheap. They're building a quality product. They have
You don't think they can loss lead it?
It's not really their style.
Why not? But they never made hardware before.
Right.
How do you know it's not their style?
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the business of consoles. It's a loss leader.
Yeah. And they're just trying to sell Steam titles, I suppose.
Right. All right. I mean, we've harped on this, and perhaps we'll have some predictions later in the show, because I do.
Ooh, that's right. This is the last.
Yes.
This is the last episode.
This is the New Year's Eve show for folks listening on the what do you call it, recording.
We're doing this on December 31st. It's also the last show for the network in 2012.
Ever.
Well, yeah, because 2012 will be over.
Got bought by 5x5.
We got bought by Discovery, and we're merging with Revision 3.
Wonderful. Let's all go move to California. Let me get some skinny jeans. We'll be good to go.
Now, do we have a writer? Do we have a listener with
a few
with the name Wayland, like the windowing environment?
It looks that way.
All right.
Your name is Wayland now, so Wayland writes in to ask if we think that AAA games will ever come to Linux. My answer is a firm no.
Aren't they already?
Okay, so I boiled this down to one line. He means in significant numbers.
Oh.
More than, say, 5 a year.
Yeah, probably it's never going to be up to snuff, at least not for a long time. But that said, we just saw the first Unreal 3 engine game ported over. That's big.
Actually, I could be wrong. If you consider the Steambox Linux, then yes.
Well, yeah.
Then the answer is yes. All right.
But, I mean, the Valve titles are AAA titles.
Are they? Oh, yeah, I guess they are.
Half-Life 3 is,
Yeah, true.
Going to be big. I mean, it depends on your definition.
I guess, okay, so if you mean the Linux desktop, the answer is no. If you mean Linux, the kernel in general, then yeah.
I wouldn't count it out, man.
I'm counting it right out, but I have more predictions.
It depends. Is a AAA, can a AAA title be a Unity-based game? Because
Oh, now we're getting into
I'm
so
just
it's
saying.
okay. We have to define triple. EA and Activision equal AAA. How about that?
I don't know if I would agree with that assessment.
Well, then, EA, Activision, Ubisoft, all the names that are currently doing high-level console titles.
Oh, okay. Well,
That's what I would consider AAA.
by that definition, then Walmart and Kmart and Fred Meyer's are AAA titles too.
Woo.
Ouch.
All right, as Chris makes a hater cocktail, we will move on to Brent's email.
Just warming up for the hoopla.
All right, Chris, I'm illiterate, so you're going to have to read this.
All right. Well, Brett says, hi, Chris and Michael. Just wondering what your thoughts are on learning/doing desktop apps compared to, say, web apps. Where do you see this stuff? Where do you see the shift or direction in programming going? Ooh, a little prediction maybe here. Do you see more options for website/internet programming, say like Ruby, Perl, ASP, JavaScript? Or is it better to learn system desktop applications, quote unquote? You know, those types of languages such as Python, C#, Java, etc. Is a desktop application still a worthwhile cause? Thank you for the tips and knowledge. Brett.
Yes. So you just asked someone who sells a desktop application if he thinks writing desktop applications is worth time, and I'm going to go, wait, yes. Yeah, but I mean, there's always going to be a need for rich native experiences that are tailored to a specific platform.
Man, there's a quote out there from some, I almost want to say it was Facebook. They're saying that, you know, their mobile apps are great, but they still feel like mobile web is the most important thing for them to focus on.
Yeah, I mean, so the problem is when people have this discussion, and this is kind of the native web discussion in different, you know, in a different shirt. The truth is it's half and half, but it's not, you know, both answers are wrong, right? It is worthwhile to do these native apps. It is worthwhile to do these web apps. It is worthwhile to know both types of languages. Having said that, I'm moving away from non-compiled languages, which is really not what you're asking, because I find it strange that you include Python with C# and Java instead of Ruby.
Maybe he's thinking of the desktop on Linux.
Yeah, that's what he's thinking of. But it's far more similar to Ruby than to Python.
Yeah.
But that, you know, there's an advantage to having a compiled language just for those easy error checking. In terms of what platform you're targeting, that's up to you and what's best for your project. Yeah. I mean, it's not people have been predicting the death of Fortran forever, and Fortran is still going strong. So
there's still it just depends on the work, depends on the gerb.
Yeah, and to be honest, when you read this stuff online, these are just bloggers trying to get Google ad revenue.
Yeah, and people kind of like
blow it out of proportion.
Yeah, they like to stroke their ego a little bit and talk big. And
it's also very, you know, if you've failed to produce a good web app, Facebook, mobile web app, it's really sometimes tempting to beat up on the platform itself.
Isn't that true? You know, right. God, how funny is it that so many of that, so that is really something that is a problem online, is somebody fails at something, so then they rage out about how bad the whole model is, or how the whole thing is never a good idea. And then people who are just honestly looking to get into it do a little research, and they come across that, and it's really hard to filter out that crap.
Yeah, so this is, I mean, I understand why you're having this question, Brett, but for whatever you're trying to do, figure out how would you like to use it best. Would you like to use it in Chrome, or do you want it to be native? And then go from there. Because languages don't die. The chat room's saying Fortran is dead, but it's a zombie.
It's a zombie.
Whatever. I mean, the point is, you know, there's still folks writing Fortran and COBOL.
I know one.
Yeah. It's not going anywhere, so I wouldn't be worried.
I'm sure Wikipedia has a page somewhere that tells you the usage statistics for Fortran. Yeah, it does.
I'm sure it's still used.
It is. It is. Yeah.
All right. So Zadik, who, sorry, I just zombie style butchered your name.
Tzadik? I don't know.
Tzadik, I don't care. He sent me a great article. He wonders if I've seen Java was strongly influenced by Objective-C, which was top of Hacker News a few days ago. Not only did I see it, I used it to troll people for the holidays.
What?
It was so fun.
Trolling through the snow in an Objective-C open sleigh.
It was great. Because the truth is, as this paper states, Objective-C and Java really are closer to Smalltalk, and Java is really a lot closer in terms of the way it works and some of the ideas to Objective-C than C++. Ha!
How can that be? You like Objective-C and you don't like Java.
I don't dislike Java.
No, you hate Java. I've seen it in the comments, so I know it to be true.
Oh, yes. When I tell someone that they can't only know Java, it means I hate Java.
Right, exactly.
Exactly. I also got an email from someone doing a web service in Objective-C. I told him that was a bad idea, too. Yes, but no, of course. But yes, thank you. It was very entertaining, and I had a great Christmas. So Rami asked if we've noticed that email is stupid to parse since I've been working on the Geary project. Kind of. I'm not sure what you mean, but okay. I mean, his email was very long, but yeah, it's old, so there's some weirdness. Additionally, he wrote a interesting Python script that backs up your email for you and does some other, let's call them quality of life features.
Oh, yeah?
So he's asking two questions.
Okay.
Should he bother trying to sell it? And if so, should he use PayPal? Or what is the name of the payment processor CodeJournal uses? And am I happy with it? Because he said he likes the way it looks. So the name of the payment processor is Gumroad. I'm very happy with it, and you should not use PayPal.
We've talked a little bit about that. Oh, so is nopriv.py. He submitted that. Yes, this is really cool.
Yeah. This is actually cool. The thing with PayPal is that there would be a lot of overhead for you to properly validate the receipts, to worry about getting chargebacks, or I shouldn't say chargebacks, but charges that fail to go through when you've already shipped the software. Where Gumroad actually does that for you. It charges the credit card when they make the transaction immediately. And then it lets them download the software once the charge is cleared. In terms of what they take about the same amount of money, so it's not really a thing. In terms of if you should try selling it at all, yeah, why not? Give it a shot. It looks pretty useful from your email, and I'm sure people would use it, and there are a lot of Python fans around.
Yeah, I'll put a link to this in the show notes. He has a blog write about this thing. Looks so sweet. And I'm almost wondering, should he charge for it? I would, if it just backs up. What I like is that it doesn't just back up, right? It creates
doesn't just back up.
It creates a very nice HTML UI around the backup. I have such what I would consider a crisis of email that it's something that would maybe get my email out of a mail client and make it easier to parse would be worth money to me. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he can go crazy with it, but I think a few dollars. Someone who gets a high volume of email would probably find this interesting. Yeah,
it doesn't. If it had and I know this is like a whole other level, but if I had some really cool search and indexing capabilities,
right?
So that way I could go back to it after a while and find what I was looking for. But anyways, you guys, I'll put a link to that Python script in the show notes. Boom.
Yes.
All right, hoopla time.
Chris, tell me about the anger.
All right, so this started. It was a late holiday night. Michael, it was...
Actually, hell, you can bring up the thing on the video, the Google Plus chat.
If I can find it, I'm looking for it. I can't remember because I have a lot of activity on my Google.
Do you want me to lead into it while you find it?
All right, go ahead.
Cool.
Go ahead.
So I was resting on the holidays in my red smoking jacket with a pipe and some eggnog, relaxing, reading a book of curious lore. And then came a Google Plus message from Chris, raging out about something with Canonical and this Team Meat, the company that makes Super Meat Boy. I did some extensive reading in some poorly constructed forums and found that, oh dear, Team Meat feels that Super Meat Boy has been on the Canonical App Store for the better part of half a year without them, A, their explicit permission, or so they think, and B, without them receiving any money.
And of course, the Team Meat guys just went ahead and posted to the web, right?
Of course. So no, so that's not fair, right? According to their posting, they tried to contact Humble Bundle and then I'm sorry, they tried to contact Canonical, and it's just not moving quickly enough for them.
I guess, yeah. So, all right, here it is. Geez, boy, that talk about man, I got a lot going on the old Google Plus. So, here's what I said. This is my apparent raging. I said, well, this is going to stir up a holiday kerfuffle, which really I just want an excuse to use the word kerfuffle. Yeah. The timing could not be worse. I'm sure that Plus Canonical are on holiday break. But some major sites are starting to pick up the story, and it's probably another one for Michael Dominic and I to talk about on Coder Radio. I also included Mr. Hartley for last. I hope by the time we record, though, it's all figured out. To be honest, something about this smells a bit BS, but if it's true, it's going to be a blow to the trust people put in Plus Ubuntu and the Plus Ubuntu app developers and potential new devs who want to come to the store. And then I linked to the Reddit thread in the Ubuntu subreddit, which was, at the time, starting to
get a little fiery.
Yeah. And at the same time, there was a thread that opened up in the Linux Action Shows subreddit. So that one has a bunch of comments. This Ubuntu one has a bunch of comments. Then it got picked up by Kotoku, AU, I think. I can't remember exactly. And kind of snowballed from there. It kind of snowballed from there. Now, thanks to the power of Google Plus, I had pinged enough people in that thread that John O'Bacon saw that and forwarded off to the right people.
Okay, so you posted it. Instead of just replying to you, I decided to do the research, unlike everybody else. And how would you say the reaction generally was to this story?
Canonical's being evil,
right? Definitely rage o'clock. So I have a theory, and I think I put it on Google Plus as well. So back in the olden days when there was no Mac App Store, a common practice for Mac developers, since it was such a small market, it was a market that was hard to reach, was to bundle their software.
Right. I think they still do it, don't they?
We still do it. It's just, the App Store has changed.
Right,
things
right. Yeah, I bet.
But, so that worked out for a while. Unfortunately, some unscrupulous folks saw that there was money to be made off these developers by opening proto app stores, right? So they were like software catalogs where they would list your application there and sometimes even pirate it. Unfortunately, you agreed to this in the terms of the bundle if you weren't paying attention. My understanding through the grapevine is the Humble Indie Bundle has something like this for Canonical, where you sort of agreed to be submitted to the Software Center. You're supposed to actually elect to it, so you're supposed to explicitly say yes. But there are oversights, and it's one of those things. Now, the idea is that the convenience of Ubuntu users being able to download your software through the Software Center is something, of course, the bundle wants to encourage. It's incredibly likely. Now, I love Super Meat Boy, I love Team Meat, and I think they're great developers, but they're probably not, even though they're highly successful, the best businessmen, it would seem. Because they didn't read the contract, right? So they had no knowledge that it was on the App Store at all, even though that's relatively standard for the Humble Indie Bundle. Now, it doesn't make them wrong. They're certainly entitled to restitution, and I would even say, I would ask for more money, but that's because I'm a jerk. What really interested me is something, if you could bring up that Plus post that slipped about how many sales there were on the App Store.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I decided not to jump on them, but I think it was Jono leaked a little bit. That
almost as because
they're acting like they're big shots, and they've sold 70 copies, which is nothing.
77 copies, I believe, was the total.
Right.
Was the official number. Yeah.
So let's do some.
Here it is. He says, "Hi folks. Here's a response from David Pickens, who runs the Ubuntu Software Center. Also, great to get that name. Thanks, Jono. At Canonical and works with developers." He says, and this is a quote from the guy that runs the Ubuntu Software Center. "I just looked into it, and the check to Tommy and Edmund from Canonical is in process for the 77 copies of Super Meat Boy.
Right.
We've been working together since November to get this resolved. No piracy here, just some miscommunication."
Now let's stop right there. 77. I believe it sells for about $5 a copy, right?
It's actually, I think it's like 10, but I'm not sure.
All right, so $10. Let's say that's $770 times 70% because Canonical takes 30. So this is $539 we're talking about.
the Super Meat Boy guys later on said, well, it's not really a big deal. It's not like a lot of money.
Because it's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
They probably lose 10 times this on piracy. At least.
Right.
77. I don't even know how the hell they noticed this. Now, again, I'm a big fan. I like them. I understand not wanting to deal with Canonical, and I think they're right if they just take the money and pull from the Canonical App Store, because this shows that there's some mismanagement.
Well, let's hold on now before you move away from the 77 number.
Right.
What? 77 copies of one of the most famous indie games of all time?
I don't understand your point.
How is that not a massive failure for the Ubuntu Software Center? That seems like a devastating indication of the level of revenue.
Sales figures are abysmal.
Now, the counterpoint to that would be that it was selling through the Humble Bundle, so probably, anybody who's going to buy it bought it that way.
So let's just vamp off somebody in the chat room here. And I'm sorry the name's cut off because of the way the screen is. He's saying 77 is not low for the Software Center. So if that's true, and I don't have the figures, but if that's really, if that's not a low number for the Ubuntu Software Center, that's a much bigger problem than somebody being stiffed at $539.
And you got to wonder if it spells doom for Steam under Linux.
Does it? I don't know.
Is it a comment on? I mean, let's be clear. The shopping experience on the Software Center is not smooth, and it takes too often. I have to fill out my shipping address and all this kind of crap.
Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but okay.
And like it could be a lot better. It's definitely not one click and it's downloading like Steam is. Well, not really. Steam's like one click and then buying it for myself, then it's downloading. But you know what I'm saying? It's. So oh god, 77 copies is
very low.
7,000 copies would still be kind of low. Still, 7,000 would still be kind of low.
Yeah, for where they are now, is that 77 above what was done through the Humble Bundle, or is that including it?
I'd love to know how many claims were done through the Software Center, because that could be like 10,000.
Right. So. It sounds like these are sales that weren't part of the Humble Bundle, because that's why Canonical would have to pay them.
Right. And the thing is I can understand, because like a lot of those Humble Bundle games that go in there are like $10 on their own. Well, you can get the whole bundle for that price. So I can understand people are not buying them a lot through the Software Center directly, because the value is, dramatically, better to buy it from the Humble Bundle guys.
I would think so.
But that's just something to look for. I'd love to know if there's anybody else out there who has had a semi well placed product in the Software Center.
I've heard similar rumors to this, but no one wants to give up numbers right now in the Software Center, which makes a lot of sense. But the numbers I've heard are very low. Now 77 is pretty damn low. Like that's kind of lower than I've been hearing for other products. But it's.
The Software Center does have a lot going against it. It's got a bad UI generally. I mean, it's functional, but like once you go past the main screens, it's just a long list of crap. It's got a slow interface. It's got a kind of a clunky payment process, and you're locked to Ubuntu, right? So,
and sometimes it fails, and the way that they make you update each time a new version of Ubuntu's come out, even if you don't really have to, is kind of obnoxious.
And sometimes your purchases that you bought for one version of Ubuntu won't install on a newer version of Ubuntu.
Yeah.
So I can understand why maybe it's just not. It's a good example of, instead of focusing Canonical, it's a good example of Canonical not focusing on the right things. Their software distribution system just needs an overhaul so bad. But,
Yeah, I mean, it's also very new, and, the idea of these app stores on Linux is very new. I think this is one of my, we're going to bleed into predictions a little, but I think they need another year or two for that to be a viable platform. Just because it needs some work, and honestly, I don't think Canonical's in the wrong here, because it sounds like everybody made a mistake.
Yeah.
Team Meat didn't really read what they were signing. The Humble Bundle didn't double check, and Canonical was just happy to have a high-profile app on there, so they probably looked the other way, or didn't even ask. that doesn't make anyone evil, right? If anything, it's an unfortunate situation that's all too common in the indie developer space, where a developer does not read the damn contract or the terms.
Right. Well, they're focused. I mean, I've probably been guilty of that with some of the things I've done. I'm focused on making my content, or they're focused on making their game.
Well, sure. They were probably happy to be part of the Humble Indie Bundle. It's great press, and they kind of just said, okay.
Well, you work on that. I will go to commercial, so I'm going to mute you for a little bit. So why don't we take a pause here and remind you guys, because not that you don't already know this, but I'm hoping that by mentioning it, I sort of program your mind. Boom, boom, boom. I'm developing code for your brain right now. I just want to give a mention to the affiliate links that we have over at JupiterBroadcasting.com at the bottom of our website. We have links down there for Amazon US, UK, Amazon DE, eBay, Netflix US, Newegg, ThinkGeek, Best Buy, Mint.com, and Audible, which I love. If you click there before you shop, a portion of your shopping session will be credited to Jupiter Broadcasting. It's a great way to support us without impacting your budget. And boom, we've got Chrome and Firefox extensions. Those are posted up on GitHub as well. You load those extensions into your Bad Mama Jamma browser. Then whenever you're shopping, it automatically tags that shopping session for us without you having to think about it. And it includes more sites than we have listed on the main website there. It's like it's some sort of internet magic brought to you by the good folks like Rekai. So thank you, Rekai, for that. And thank you, everybody who supports the network by using those affiliate links or by donating directly and locking in a little bit of funding, because we appreciate that too.
Merry Christmas.
Ho, 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 ho.
Ho, ho. I hope that sounds good in the car.
It was it was a lean but good Christmas for you, wasn't it?
Yes, my very generous in-laws and fiance were being Santa Claus.
Aw.
Getting me all work-related items, of course.
So what were some of your favorite things?
Some of my favorite things, Stedman. That was just awful.
Yeah.
You could edit that out.
I like that you know Stedman's name. Like, I forgot who Stedman was there for a second.
I pleaded the fifth.
And then I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Michael knows his Oprah trivia.
I do. I listen. So my favorite phone of this year is definitely the HTC X. I can't do an Oprah impersonation in my life.
So did you get the HTC X?
Yeah, it's the. They say it's blue. It looks purple, which I like because I like purple.
So you were rocking an official, cutting-edge, latest and greatest Windows Phone 8.
The one you have on the screen. That's exactly the phone.
How? Wow! You are the first person I know.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not true. That's not true. One of my clients has it, but that's not true.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
But the first person in my social circle that I know.
And you know what? I do feel the early adopterness.
Oh, you do?
Yes. So the App Store is sparse, shall we say.
Oh, really?
And one requirement I have... So I guess we should start overall. The hardware of the phone is very nice. It's very light. It's very sturdy. I actually like it a lot. The screen resolution is nicer than the other phone you can get on Verizon. And switching carriers was not an option. So I'm overall very happy with it.
How's the camera?
I don't know. I don't do that.
Ah.
I'm like the only person who doesn't take pictures on his phone.
See, it's got a Snapdragon 1.5 gigahertz dual core.
Yeah. I'm told the camera's not as good as the other one, the Nokia.
No,
what I have
LTE. No LTE.
It is LTE. That's why I like it.
Oh, it is LTE. Oh, okay.
Yes, it is.
Oh.
What I have noticed is it has that stupid Beats audio.
Oh, yeah.
That freaks out when you plug it into like an external player.
What does it do?
So Beats audio is supposed to be some fancy audio.
By Dr. Dre.
Right.
Yeah.
All it does is double the volume.
It's like a compressor effect, right? That it applies. Yeah.
And the system decides to turn it on and off based on how you're listening to something. So for instance, I have a very old iHome that's so old that it allows you to plug in audio lines into it.
Nice.
So I've always done that with my Nexus, and now I do it with this phone. The Beats audio has to turn itself on and off every time I plug and unplug it, which is frustrating.
So is there like a software component to this that has to run too?
Yeah, I'm told I can turn it off. I haven't figured out how.
So does that mean that HTC is preloading software onto the phone to do this kind of stuff? Like, is there HTC branded apps on there and stuff?
I think there's one or two. So one thing that's a little interesting is that the style of the Windows Phone 8 apps, since they're so plain,
yeah,
you know how when you buy an iPhone, you can tell kind of like Verizon has an app here and there, and they look awful.
Yeah.
Everything's so plain that it was hard for me to tell what was stock, Windows. And I think like I have an extra camera app that the other phones don't have because they have some kind of special camera thing.
Hmm.
They have their own section when I open the App Store, like HTC apps that I never look at. But overall, I mean, it doesn't feel as bad as some of the super skinned Android phones. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
It's more stock Windows. So it is stock Windows 8, I believe.
Okay.
It looks like every other Windows 8 phone that you would buy.
Well, it's a dramatic difference, right? Because they're
Right.
not letting vendors
Don't
replace
do
the whole UI or not replace, but
Which I think is nice.
extend.
So I lived in this for a few weeks. I even tried Xbox Music, which I didn't like. And I'm right back to Spotify. So that leads me into the App Store situation. There's no Spotify app. There's no lots of apps.
Right.
I'll put it this way. I love podcasts, obviously. I've purchased 4 podcasting apps
For Windows Phone?
for Windows Phone, and I'm barely happy with the one I decided to use.
Now, what is it? Just lack of functionality?
They're immature.
Yeah.
It feels a lot like my first podcast app that you would get from an intern or...
That's how I feel all of the Windows 8, not all, but so many of the Windows 8 desktop apps that I've gotten from the store are just like my first desktop app. Kind of like hitting the reset button on some of this stuff.
The first one I tried was the most expensive because I think, okay, it has good ratings, but it was unable to resume in the same spot where I left off.
Oh.
If you took a phone call, it blows out all your progress.
Oh.
I was so pissed. So, they don't have a Downcast. They don't have a Pocket Cast. They don't have a Dogcast. Those are the names from Android that I liked, basically. And that situation is kind of all over the place in the App Store. I'm just using podcasting apps as an example. And ironically, the app I ended up using is one from Windows Phone 7 that got ported over. It's one of the oldest, but it at least has the basic functionality that I need.
I tried some streaming internet video app to like watch internet streams and on Windows 8 desktop. And as soon as you would Alt-Tab out of it, it would pause.
Loses all data. Yeah.
And exactly. And you come back and it has to rebuffer the stream and restart. And I'm like, what the crap is this?
They're not saving state properly, and there's a lot of... It's immature. A lot of it's immature. Now, overall, so the phone itself is nice, the operating system's nice, the third-party apps aren't very good. One thing I am liking is the game support, where it actually ties into Xbox Live.
Oh.
So I'm using this phone. I think I'm going to keep using it. I obviously still have my Nexus. I don't know. So to me, this seems like a market opportunity for developers who know how to do mobile apps to build ones that don't suck.
So it's not fundamentally like the Metro UI is just not...
No, the issues I'm having have nothing to do with user interface there. I had to hit home to take a phone call, or I took a phone call, just like on iPhone, right? Comes up. And the whole app lost.
They should be able to save state. Like the Windows Phone OS does allow for, even if it's multimedia?
Yeah, they're just not doing it.
Okay.
So even if they don't actually have the multimedia aspect, they you can do other ways around that.
So then you're right. People are buying these products, not in droves I think Microsoft would like, but there's if you could make a quality app, there's got to be
a market.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see, these high ratings for what are relatively, one-star apps on the iPhone. Some of them weren't even functionally good. Now, I do think the Metro UI is a little limiting because everything looks the same. But it could be a growth market. So it should be interesting.
How do you decide, though? I mean, it's like... it was so clear that Android was on a trajectory.
Right.
And it was so clear that iOS was on a trajectory and that it was, you go there, you make money. I guess it wasn't always so clear for Android, was it?
It wasn't. Remember, there was a day when Android was a very risky market. And this feels like that. This will either fail or succeed. If it succeeds and you get in there early, you could make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I'm going there. I mean, I am doing some Windows RT contracting right now. But I would, because let's be honest, a lot of our listeners, they want to do mobile, but they don't have Macs. And they're Android fans, but maybe they want to try something else. This might be a good growth market if you can do a reasonable application. Because one thing is, not everything's been done, which is nice. And the things that have been done, honestly, are pretty bad. And that's just the immaturity of the marketplace right now.
Now, there's currently no way for you to have a Metro app on the desktop and also have that Metro app on the phone, right?
Because I also got the Asus VivoTab RT, and I'm used to my my Nexus 7 and my Nexus Galaxy and my iPad and iPhone, where they can share, right? Where they share software, and it's very strange for me to have to then get into this mindset where the tablet is actually a small PC rather than a scaled up mobile device. If you follow.
Yeah, I do. And this looks like a... Did you get it with the keyboard, or is it just the tablet? How does that work?
So they were... I got it with the keyboard. Apparently.
Oh my God, that thing looks sweet, dude.
To be honest, I've been taking it to bed instead of my Air, and I've been pounding out blog posts or tweets or Google Plus updates.
So and it's ARM-based, so it's RT, right?
It's only RT, yeah.
Okay, so this to me seems like what Windows 8 must excel at. You have something that you can detach and use solely as touch, and it comes back and it connects to a keyboard, and then it's got the full touch. It's got a touch trackpad, right?
Yeah, the keyboard has a trackpad. What's interesting is when the keyboard is plugged in, you don't lose the ability to touch the screen.
Okay, great, yeah.
But there are cases where it's more efficient to still swipe your hand than to worry about the trackpad, right? So living in this machine, and I think it's a little bit of a failing of Windows 8, there needs to be like a tutorial mode, because there's all these gestures kind of like on the iPad, but they don't tell you how they work. But once you pick them up, you can navigate really fast.
That's just Windows 8 in general, though.
Well, the problem is if you don't know the gestures, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Like, that's that.
Because there's no keyboard.
Yeah, one thing I found interesting about this tablet, I'm a pragmatist, right? I have Android tablets, iPads, I use everything. Is I find myself doing very little gaming on this device, and almost always doing office work.
Yeah, I can see that.
Letters, emails, blog posts, things like that.
Does this come with Microsoft Office?
Yeah, I think all the RT tablets do.
And how's the performance with that?
It's not bad.
How's the battery life?
The battery life isn't terrible. I've noticed one interesting glitch. So the dock and the tablet seem to somehow share battery life. So when you plug in the tablet to the dock, it cuts the battery life in half.
I would think the dock would have like extra battery in it to
It does, but you can charge them with each other or independently.
Okay.
And I have been mistakenly only charging the tablet.
Ah.
So the dock then has to drain the tablet to get a charge.
It's kind of interesting that it can, though.
You could. So I've been told that if I put the tablet in the dock and then plug the dock in, it'll charge both. And it'll figure out which needs to charge more.
Boy, this to me seems like what I'd love to see Ubuntu do as well.
Yeah, I could see a nice Unity product like this, right?
Yeah. I mean, if when Mark Shuttleworth is talking about mobile, if this is what he means,
that's my problem. Microsoft doesn't see this as a mobile device, and it's weird. But you go on with your Ubuntu thing.
No, that's about it. I mean, I like it.
Yeah.
What do you mean now by that?
I mean, I see their point. Like, I'm getting work done. Literally, I found a decent text editing app, and I can write scripts on this thing.
Don't you think Microsoft's point is that it's all just a computer?
Well, I feel like their point is this is not a toy.
Right.
And that's fine. But it kind of, like, I don't know. I like it, but I haven't done anything fun with it, if that makes sense.
I mean, there is the Transformer, Asus Transformer, which is this machine basically running Android, right?
Spent 2 months trying to buy that thing when it first came out.
Yeah, they haven't sold well.
I couldn't get one when it first came out. You could not buy one.
There was some sort of, they've sold like 2 million or something like that total,
Yeah,
or something like that.
It was a shortage, but then I heard it did badly.
So, which do you like more, the phone or the new tablet?
I say the tablet.
Yeah, I would think so.
Because the tablet has quickly become part of my workflow. I mean, in a way, the phone, I'm less distracted by mobile games now, so it's good, I guess.
Do you find, okay, so just so I'm clear, you can buy an app on a Windows 8 desktop, and then that app also is available to you on the RT tablet?
Kind of. Okay, so this was really confusing to me, and I was annoyed.
Yeah, because I'm not quite understanding how it works.
Yeah. So, certain apps are ARM and i386 or x64. So let's just say ARM and Intel to simplify.
Right.
This, right.
But okay, yeah. Oh yeah, okay. Even in Metro.
Right.
Okay.
So to be on the Metro Store, you have to be ARM 386 or ARM whatever the hell it's called. But you might not necessarily have an Intel version.
Excuse me?
That's what seems to be happening.
The Windows Store is allowing ARM-only apps, but not x86 only? Wow, that world is changing.
So no, I might be saying this backward. It is the opposite way. Okay, they're allowing Intel-only games.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay.
So there was a game called Cold War that I was looking for. Because I saw it on my computer, and I wanted to go buy it for the tablet, because the UI made it look like a casual strategy RPG. So I was like, oh, let me take a look.
Yeah.
I couldn't find it in the App Store, and I couldn't figure out why. So after some Googling, it is that way. So there can be Intel, but not ARM games. Now, I don't know if it can go the other way, ARM and not Intel. I presume it can.
So it's not all. So not everything's available.
But it works like the Android store does.
But if you buy something and they make an ARM and x86, do you own it on both? Can you install it on both?
Yeah. So if it's universal, I believe you own it no matter what. I'll give you a great example. I have a Tweetro Plus.
Yeah.
I bought it on the tablet. It showed up on my Mac Mini here, which has Windows 8 on a partition.
Okay.
So it's. I'm not, and if somebody can correct me on this, I'm not sure where the distinction is here. But honestly, it is a little funky. Because then I was doing some Windows RT development for a client, and Visual Studio doesn't make that much of a distinction. It's just, oh, you plugged in a tab, or you're doing remote deployment to a tablet. Great, we'll compile to ARM.
Huh.
So it's like what Xcode does for iPhone and Mac.
Uh-huh.
There are some APIs that don't work and that you need to deal with. But if you stay, well, okay, it's actually, the situation's actually better in Visual Studio than it is in Xcode because the whole UIKit, AppKit break. Because you can write Intel apps using the new Windows 8, Windows RT Metro APIs. Almost all of them. On the iOS side, UIKit doesn't exist on the Mac. And AppKit doesn't exist on the iPhone, so it won't run. If that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
So we're getting off into dependency discussion here.
That's interesting, though. I've wondered.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Okay.
However, when you compile UIKit for the simulator, it's actually not an emulator like the Android one. It's not an ARM emulator. It's a simulator running at S386. So deal with that. Enjoy.
So now, I find it interesting. You now have two of the premier Windows 8 type products, and it's still not convincing you to develop for the platform.
Well, I like the Asus much better than the Surface. Just from the hardware, like I feel like the Asus is very polished. I feel like it's very speedy. I don't. Yeah, I'm not 100% sold yet. Because I think to approach these tablets in particular, you can't approach them as though they were the iPad or the Nexus 7 or 10 or whatever. I feel like they have a different role, and I'm finding just in my day-to-day use, this has a very different role than my iPad.
You're going to say, my iPad's for playing.
Well, the other thing is my iPad...
It's a consumption device.
It kind of is, actually. And that's what it's coming down to. The problem is, it's not just that the Asus has the ability to do production, it also doesn't have the ability to do a lot of the consumption.
Oh, is that what it is?
A lot of what I use on my iPad, it's missing Pocket, Instapaper, Read It Later, any of those apps, which are all essentially equivalent. There's no version.
Well, yeah, I'm sure Pocket will have something soon.
Yeah, because they port to everything. So, it's missing... I mean, it has the Hulu, it has Netflix. Hulu, I'm like an old man. And the games, there's also a weird quality disparity in the RT store. So some of the games are very good because they've been built by Microsoft. Some of the games are very bad. And I feel like it's more extreme than it is on iOS. I feel like it's Android pre-Google's algorithm to kind of filter things better. But that could be I guess what it comes down to is, do I think this is worth the investment for most developers? I'd say maybe if you have an app that is production-oriented. I don't know that this is a target for your next indie game. But to be fair, if you're the first one to have a hit indie game on this, you'll make a lot of money.
Yeah, but those people are probably already at work.
That's the other thing. The product's good enough that it's, the platform's good enough that it is going to attract a lot of, I think, especially in the gaming space, because of that Xbox Live integration, it's going to attract a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that in itself is really attractive. But like I said, I don't, if you have an iPad, if you have a Nexus 10, I don't know that you need to go get one of these.
Right.
I don't know if this is a Steambox Ouya situation where the Steambox makes you consider canceling the Ouya project. But if you're already, because we do have them, Chris, Microsoft developers, Windows developers, if you're already in that space and you wanted to get into a more mobile touch space, yeah, this is probably a product to look at.
And don't you kind of feel like the Metro UI takes the pressure off of the developer to have to create this? I have to hire a designer type UI. Like that's kind of, isn't that pressure kind of alleviated?
Well, but having lived in this, I'm also feeling like it has a limited shelf life. Because it gets boring.
Yeah.
Everything is the same. And I don't know if it's developers, I hate skeuomorphism as much as the next guy, but when everything's plain text, literally everything's plain text.
Yeah, it works better on a smaller screen, I think.
Yeah, on the phone. And so that's one thing about the phone. Because everything's basically text, it is lightning fast.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything is very fast.
Huh. It's an interesting thing to watch, and I'm glad you got one, so now you can play with it.
Yeah, and somebody in the chat room is mentioning Unity. Yeah, I mean, the tools are going to be there soon. Unity 3D will have a Windows 8 port in terms of as a compiled target, because they have to. Right? Because the whole idea is that you build for one platform and you get them all. I just don't know. I don't know if in a year from now are we going to be saying that the market's 33 Android, 33 iOS, and 33 WinRT. I doubt that. Should I make my batshit prediction?
Yeah, do it. I'm ready. Hold on, put on my hat. Okay.
45 Android. Hang on, I gotta make sure I do the math.
Right, I'm gonna write it down as you tell me. So 45% goes to Android. Okay.
35 iOS.
35 iOS. Okay.
20, Windows gets 10, Windows RT, and the other 10 is old Java. It's just other. So like Firefox, old Java.
Are you saying this would be towards the end of 2013?
This time in 2013.
45% Android, 25% iOS, 10% WinRT. Now, is 10% enough? Maybe. Because it's not just 10% RT, it's also then going to be anybody who's adopted it on the desktop.
10% short.
Oh, math is hard, man.
Math is hard. I think I meant 50 Android and
I would agree with 50% Android. Yeah.
I think 50-30. But the point is, I think Android will dominate. iOS will have a little bit of resurgence, and I think it'll hover around 30%. I don't think RT is going anywhere. I'm sorry, by RT I mean Windows Phone 8.
The thing that could screw with your iOS prediction is Apple TV, the devices, the little hardware boxes, could come into the app arena, and then all of a sudden, boom, we're just calling those iOS devices because they are running iOS. And now all of a sudden, they're calculated in the iOS. Of course, if you're just talking iPhone, that's a different story.
So if we're just talking phones, I think those numbers hold.
Yeah.
Yeah, because also, how do you define WinRT? It's like, ugh.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Jeez.
It's,
it's a weird world when Android's the easy one to calculate and understand.
What I think is
BlackBerry is BlackBerry in that 10% other, you think? Jeez, see, this is tough, man. This prediction stuff's tough.
Let me answer his question backwards. Jolly Mobile may as well not exist. Firefox OS may as well put in the towel.
We're not counting Asia. Because they might do okay in Asia, you never know.
They might. I don't think so. Android has such a good foothold. I don't think for the next year they're going anywhere.
Yeah. And as long as they keep making it nicer and better, why would anybody desert?
BlackBerry, I think, will have most of that other 10%. I'm a little bullish on it. I think they'll come back.
RT though, Windows is really going to be taking BlackBerry's an enterprise product, and so is Windows.
I meant Windows Phone 8, so we're talking phones.
It's Windows Phone 8 versus BlackBerry, basically.
10.
Yeah,
I think BlackBerry 10 will not be a consumer play, but it's going to be a enterprise play, government play, right? Places where you're super concerned about security, and you might have BlackBerry RIM servers running. Ubuntu, I don't think. I mean, they talk a big game about mobile. I don't think they're going to really do anything. And
the world needs an Ubuntu type solution, but
the problem is the pattern is that this market is getting rid of competitors, right? It's not adding them.
I know, and that's what people see. I've gotten a lot of heat just in. It's now been not even 24 hours since the words have left my mouth. I said in last that Android's locked it down. Android, in terms of king of market, Android has it. And what Ubuntu is proposing fighting Apple and Google, who are all dominating the top, and then the scraps that go to BlackBerry and Microsoft and all the others. And it's not that I want it that way. I just think to break into this market where you have carriers involved and these contracts that span multiple years, and these manufacturing pipelines where people are buying up parts years in advance, how do you scale to that without being?
It's also important. This is a huge market. So someone in the chat keeps mentioning Jala Cloud has some large contracts. That's fine. Except large is great, but in a market that's this big, that's insignificant, right?
Right, because we're talking about in terms of what developers would want to target in order to make a living. So we're not saying maybe Jolly, if they have some big contracts and they sell 5 million phones or whatever it is, that's awesome, and maybe that pays for 200 people to work for that company for a couple of years. But
there's also going to be local hotbeds like Canada will. I'm sorry, Canada. Yeah, Canada will probably be a little more BlackBerry heavy than say for the US.
And that could definitely be considered success for those companies, but it's probably not enough success for a bunch of indie developers to come into the market and make a living.
I mean, right now, if you're thinking mobile, I still think unless you're looking for a high risk, high reward play, and then you're probably going Windows. But if you're looking for a conservative play, you're thinking Android, iOS.
If you're really going conservative, you're probably just thinking iOS in terms of revenue.
But I mean, Android has the market share, and the only one who can screw that up for Google is Google, right? And because people don't switch. These platforms are designed for lock-in.
Did you see that according to IDC and Goldman Sachs, 42% of all devices shipping, counting all types of computer devices, are running Android?
Yeah, so again, what is a device, right? So we can get into these weird arguments.
They're counting
They're counting 2013
laptops,
is is going to be the year of incredibly worthless statistics.
Well, I agree. It is worthless, but what the point is you just look at their activation numbers. They're outselling every other platform. They're selling in a month what some platforms sell in a year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can, if you're honest with yourself, deny the success of Android at this point. And I think it's also fair to say that I am not a Google fanboy. In fact, many JB people have accused me of the opposite. So I just think it's, the numbers are the numbers. If you're being real with yourself, you need to look at the data.
Yeah, I'd love for a solid third competitor to be really strong, and maybe it'll happen. I mean, I'm gonna,
competition is good for everybody.
And I'll be one of if Ubuntu releases a mobile device that's reasonable, or there's something really great that's coming along, I'm gonna be one of the people that buys it and tries to, promote that platform.
Yeah, and to be honest, I would have picked up a Nexus 4 if it was available to be activated on my carrier. And that's the problem all these platforms have, is they're dealing with the freaking devil.
Yeah, these are the worst companies ever.
It's unbelievable. Ooh, I like that phone. Let me go. Oh, HSPA Plus.
Yeah, and they are some scary companies. It's just, and the way they work is just so hard to work with them. You gotta have entire divisions of your company that are dedicated to interfacing with the telcos. So I can give you a little war story here. My iPhone 4S, which is my personal line, is it's been damaged, right? I left it out in the heat one day and the audio doesn't work right. The speaker audio is broken, so it still works as a phone. And I'll be honest, it's my personal phone. I barely use it. Like, if it wasn't a contract, I'd probably just cancel the line. I went to the Apple store because I had some Apple gift cards about a month and a half ago. I had, money, obviously. And I said, I know I'm off of contract. I'd like to buy an iPhone. I said, can I get either another 4S or do you have any 5s? And they said, sure. What carrier do you have? I said, Verizon. Guy says, oh, do you have unlimited data? Yeah. You'll lose your plan even if you pay full price for the phone. Yeah. Because it's a change to your...
But I'm not taking a subsidy. I said, I don't want a subsidy. I said, I'll pay the $600, I said, I just want a phone that rings.
Right, yeah.
And the guy says, we can't do anything for you.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's
not their fault. It's not.
Props to him for actually warning you, because he essentially costed himself a sale by doing that.
Well, you have to sign the contract. So when they do it, I would have had to fill out the paperwork.
Now, so the way Verizon looks at it is, well, it's a change to your account is a change to your accnt, and anything.
Well, the other issue is the 5. If I got that, is an LTE phone, and the 4S is not, which people forget.
Right.
So it's a strange market. It's one of those things like, even so, someone's asking, I got the HTC 8X for my work line now. Do you know you can't get certain colors on certain carriers? Like there's a red one that's only on Verizon, and then there's a yellow one that's only on, I think, Sprint or what do they call it, T-Mobile? The HSPA one.
I really wish that there was some replacement.
It's silly.
Yeah.
It's so silly.
Yeah, it's really, and to think what's so frightening about it is so much more is going to be tied to these guys as we go more mobile, and payment systems are probably going to, if these people, if they turn into banks too, this is going to be one of the most frightening developments of the
AT&T already has bill to my account.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How far out is it until you have an AT&T account that's tied in with some sort of function on the iPhone? I'm sure Apple will work with the carriers to do this because they'll make money or whatever. And it'll be like you pre-charge an AT&T account. And I know that's sort of like this in Asia. I don't know if their telcos are as bad as ours, but pretty soon they become like a little mini PayPal.
So
not mini, much larger than PayPal. Yeah.
Perhaps the global audience can help us a little. My understanding is in Europe and the rest of the world, this is not how cell phones work. That you purchase your phone and then you go get a plan. That there's not this weird subsidy contract situation. Is that the case, Chris? Are you aware of that or no?
I believe that's my understanding. It's more common for around the world people to pay full price.
Right, and this is just a weird thing we have here where they subsidize the phones, but they own everything basically.
Well, and people have to understand our carriers, like the Bell and now AT&T, literally came out of an arrangement with the government where they were going to be a monopoly, like a government condoned
They were going to be
monopoly.
like a utility, is basically.
Yeah, and then it's kind of it's they were split up later on, but it's essentially they've reformed back into that original monopoly, and there's just shady things that go on with these telcos. And like
it's incredibly confusing to even get customer support from them. Some things void your contract, some things don't. Some things are free, some things are not.
Yeah, I think my next phone will be whatever, like if it's going to be the Nexus 5 or whatever they call it. That I guess, are they always going to call it the Nexus 4 as long as it's a 4-inch screen? I don't know how that works, but
is it not the 4th Nexus? I thought that's why they call it the 4th.
I don't know. I thought it was a Nexus 7 because it's a 7-inch screen, and Nexus 10 for the 10-inch screen, and Nexus 4 for the 4-inch screen.
Oh, they're not going to do like the Nexus 4 version 2 or something.
Either way, whatever it is, I think that'll be my next phone. Just because that's probably when I'll be ready for another phone, and I like the idea of buying it off contract. And with these components getting cheaper to make, you got to figure the prices are going to go down. And
no, because they're always going to want more memory, more graphics processing in the phone. It's like a computer.
Well, yeah, but why can't you do the iPhone model where last year's model now sells for $99 off contract? $99 off contract. And now think about that. Think about that's a decent phone that you could make a decent app for.
I know less than what I have. I actually have a stack of old iPhones, but it's I mean it's funny. These phones are very powerful compared to, I'm sure, the computers you and I have used in the past.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I think this HTC has like a gig of RAM or something silly like that.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's unthinkable how much memory these phones have.
Huh. All right. So it's not. So it's just the 4th. So I guess the next one would be the Nexus 5. But then what is going to happen when they do 2 more? Anyways, I think it's going to be an interesting approach, because what Google will be doing is over time they'll be seeding the market with unlocked Android handsets that are powerful enough where developers can write good applications for it. And I think overall this is going to be a good thing for Android in 2013.
Yeah, I think that's the whole Nexus play. It's really for developers, right? Very cheap for the hardware.
Yeah,
$300 is very inexpensive.
And this is a strategy that really Google has really locked onto, that Microsoft and Apple and BlackBerry and etc. really are not going to be able to clone so closely.
Well, how could they not clone it? They could just sell a phone at a loss.
It's not the same. It's not the same system though, because at the same time, so Google can do this and not really cost themselves a lot, and at the same time they have this whole, Samsung and Motorola and LG that are producing a whole nother range of phones that are getting phones out in the market. So it's like this. They have like this volume that they're just never, I don't think, really ever going to be able to match. I wouldn't think. I don't know.
Well, you never say never. I mean, for 2013, certainly they have a lock, but it's...
Yeah. It's
you
hard
know,
to say.
and one of my other predictions is the desktop space. I think Apple's going to make great gains with Joe Consumer, and they're going to lose some of their recent developer gains in terms of developers who aren't really Mac developers or iOS developers using Macs.
Isn't that kind of like catch-22 though? Because if you have an influx of users, don't you eventually have an influx of developers to meet the demand of those users?
Well, the people I'm talking about are like the web developers who don't care, right? They're like the Python devs, Ruby devs. They're just...
No, I agree with you, and I think a lot of it is that just like Vista cost a lot of defection to Mac, I believe.
Mountain Lion. Yeah.
And now I believe Windows 8 will cause a lot of defection to the Mac, but to other platforms as well. But I think in terms of sales and things like that, the Mac will do the best, and they've been trending better than the industry average now for like the last 4 years or something. So. Yeah,
and it's strange because it's easy to say that Ubuntu is gonna pick it up.
While we're on the Mac, I want to pin you down about a Mac prediction for 2013.
Do it.
So Apple's supposed to release an OS a little faster now, and we've...
Oh, I know what you're about to say.
Probably seen rumors, I think, about the next version of OS 10 being in early testing.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the version where by default you only install apps from the App Store?
Oh, I have an even bolder prediction than that, but we'll do yours first. Yes, probably.
So you think they're going to do it?
So when you say a new rev, you mean like 10.9, right?
Yeah. I couldn't remember what version they're on right now. Yeah.
You mean like CloudKitty, whatever they're going to call it.
Whatever the next kitty's going to be, the next full-on release. Do you think?
Am I the only one who finds it strange that Lion wasn't the last version?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're right.
Probably, yeah. I think so.
Okay. What was your cockamamie prediction?
Not for 2013, for 2014. ARM Max.
Yeah, I see that too. I would totally agree.
And iOS and macOS converge.
People gotta look into the scope of Apple's semiconductor business.
Yep. That
they what was it? PA Semiconductor that they acquired?
They're buying little chip companies,
and they did the
the
designs and most of the legwork on the CPU and the iPhone, the new 5. Like that's their
own design.
Yeah.
But even more, Cocoa. Do you remember an API called Carbon?
Yeah.
In 2014, Cocoa goes the way of Carbon.
People will flip their S.
It will be bloody murder.
I don't think that'll happen. I don't think Tim Cook has the sack. Think of Photoshop. Think of Office.
He's got he has
all of their apps. Every one of their apps. Everyone. iTunes, iPhoto, Final Cut.
Office is actually not written in Cocoa.
Okay, all right. Final Cut, Logic. No way, man. No freaking way. Every one of their own apps.
That's what they said about Carbon. Oh, all their software is written in Carbon. So what? They are going to dump, because they're going to need to converge the platforms. And if you're ever going to dump Cocoa, that's the time. Now, they'll support it and they'll keep it around. And I think what replaces it will look an awful lot like Cocoa.
Oh, the chat room says we're only talking about Apple, which is such crap. We just got done talking about Google for like 15 minutes.
Yeah,
and then we talked about Ubuntu before that and Microsoft before that. We're making the rounds, guys. Jeez.
They're very whiny.
Anyways, I'm sorry. You might be right, because I do think they're going to converge the platforms. I don't know if it's going to happen in 2013.
And I think there's a reason. Because one of the things they don't like currently, or based on their new rules, is that Cocoa gives you a lot of access to the system. I bet you its replacement will be very restricted. It'll be like the WinRT.
Interesting, man. Well, I don't know.
That's a 14, not a 2013.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Let me put some predictions to you.
All right, do it. Bring it.
Dell Sputnik on December 31st of 2013. Is it a distant memory or is it a line of successful products?
Oh, man, great question. I would love to say it's the 2.0 version. It has a near retina size, level display.
I'd also like to be the King of England, but
I think it's dead.
I think so too, and I think it's dead just because of the screen. It turned off too many potential customers.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, there's plenty of fanboys that will buy it because on principle it doesn't ship with Windows. Yeah. But there's also people like me who are a Linux advocate. I run Linux everywhere, and I would still almost lean to buy the Windows version just so I have the Windows license, because practically that is handy to have.
And not only that, I buy machines based on the hardware, not the software, because you can slap Ubuntu on it whenever you want.
Well, yeah. I mean, now I have the System 76 Bonobo, and there really is something to having everything tested for Linux. Just everything just is so smooth. It is really like a MacBook Pro in terms of I open the lid, I close the lid a million times a day. I never worry about any sleep issues. I just plug stuff in, unplug all. I mean, it's really nice. So if they can match that with the Sputnik and they revved the screen, people would buy it. I just don't think Dell can.
Yeah, I think that market is going to be for a boutique company like System 76, where they're really dedicated to a core line of products, and in my opinion, they are the premier Linux vendor. Only because I only know of 2 other competitors, and I think System 76 does a nicer job.
I agree. I think you're right. Yeah, it's a boutique thing, and people who have taste will go for that. I mean, really, it's kind of like that. People, I don't know jack about wine, but people go to special wine stores that have great wine because the people there know what great wine is, and so I mean, I'm making a bad example, but you know what I'm saying.
No, it's a good example. There's a liquor store near me where they do microbrews that they have shipped in, and you can buy them in your own little cases.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's right off the tap, and you give them the bottle and they do it for you.
Oh man, can I move next to you? And oh my gosh.
But you don't want to move to New Jersey.
No, I don't.
No.
I actually like Washington quite a bit.
I like New Jersey, but it's down here is still
I know, man. I know.
little messed up from the hurricane.
We don't get hurricanes over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I got you with the Dell one. I have a prediction about our good friends QT.
Oh, okay, great.
They are gonna blow up. We will be talking about QT, I would say, on a quarterly basis, starting in the second quarter.
I wonder if that's so true. I think they're definitely going to see a lot of success. I don't know if they're going to blow up, but I think
so, and I think their gains will be at the cost of Xamarin or Mono, whatever the hell you want to call them these days.
Oh yeah, Mono for sure. Yeah, I could definitely see the decline there.
Because I'm already seeing a lot of weakness. And, it's just a bad idea, but we won't go back into that.
I kind of like I kind of like it though. I think QT should. Is it? You know, it's one of those things where it is so prime for the picking as long as people find out about it and know how to use it.
But I think at the bare minimum, Qt will be the premier Linux development stack.
Wow.
Yeah, at the bare minimum. And I even think it has a shot at slapping down that Python GTK stuff that the Ubuntu community is so in love with.
I don't know, man. As a Linux desktop user, when I think of a Qt app, I think of Kludgy, I think of buttons, I think of clunky.
Yeah, but Qt5, it's come a long way.
Okay, all right. Well,
yeah.
You know, I have never used a Qt5 application,
and I think it's very new. They have some things to take a look at, but
that's exciting, man.
It's exciting. It's really going to be it's going to be a great time. And I see in the chat the Java developers are having a field day.
So what you're telling me is we should, like in 2013, expect some episodes on Qt. Because if it's going to be a topic, it's probably at least going to be in the hoopla, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think Qt is going to go somewhere good. Now, we've had pretty positive predictions so far. Wouldn't you say that?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Actually, yeah.
I have some obituaries I'd like to predict.
Is Nintendo on that list?
If only in my dreams.
Wow, really? Wow.
Is that too much?
Mario.
Luigi, it is time to come to the iPad.
You have dire predictions about the iPad, huh?
No, I had.
Nintendo needs to come to the iPad.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So if you want to talk about gaming, I was actually, because we just did a gaming episode, but we could talk. I think people like that. I think the Wii U is going to underperform, which is kind of unfair because it's already underperforming. Yeah. And they underperformed for the holiday season, which means they're screwed.
Bad economy, bad, not great product.
Overpriced hardware.
Yeah.
Not a good combination.
Right.
Everybody's broke and you're trying to sell.
Everybody blew all their money on their smartphones this year.
But ain't that the truth, though? People are buying tablets for kids instead of consoles.
Dylan is a full-fledged nightly iPad user.
Yep.
And you know what? He told me last night the Nexus 7 is his favorite because he likes the size. It's easier for him to carry.
I thought he was an iPad fanboy.
He is. But dude, I'm telling you what, he's figured out how to unlock Android. He's figured out how to close applications, under Jelly Bean. It's a little different, much different than how you do it on iOS. I mean, it's really interesting how touch is so much easier for these guys to understand. So,
yeah, my brother is an iPad fan. I mean, he uses he has a Kindle Fire as well.
If Nintendo ported their apps, I guarantee you he would want them on there. I guarantee you.
I'll never do it.
No.
But that actually wasn't going to be my prediction.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it is that, yes, we use underperforming, but I don't think that's fair to predict because it already happened.
Yeah.
Even though it certainly will continue into next year, unless they cut the cost, but then in terms of revenue, blah, 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 math is bad. I say the Xbox 720 or whatever. Are you serious with that Xbox 8 thing, by the way?
Yeah, here, I'll look it up while you talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because that might invalidate one of my predictions.
Fails because of the
name already.
Okay, so what it was, okay, all right, so don't freak out. People are already trying to debunk it. All it was is Microsoft made a big grab to buy a bunch of domains around Xbox 8. And so people thought that maybe... Yeah, so that's all. That's all it was. I just saw the headline, so just take it with a grain of salt. But I would actually not put it outside the realm of possibility for Microsoft because...
ever.
People are still talking about it on Twitter, though.
All right. Well, actually, I guess it doesn't invalidate what I was going to say.
Okay.
I think the Xbox becomes a much more open platform. I think it beats the PS4 or whatever they're going to call it at launch pretty solidly
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the United States.
yeah,
I think the exact opposite happens in Japan because
yeah.
that's just the way it always
Yep, yep.
happens. Europe will be half and half like it always is, but in the US, I think the Xbox is going to have a dramatic lead, which for developers is going to mean that, I also feel they're going to be more open. What I don't think is going to happen, so I've heard rumors that they're going to do two Xboxes. Have you heard this yet? Not like a pro and a normal version, like
Mm-mm,
two
mm-mm.
products called Xbox that are radically different from
Oh
each other.
no, like a tablet and a console kind of thing.
So actually, there's three. There's the Xbox tablet, which I think is just a lie because they released a tablet and called it Surface. That's an old rumor, though. I mean, why would they use two names?
Right.
But the things I'm referring to is there's talk of like an Apple TV, Google TV competitor called the Xbox, Media or
Oh, I
Xbox.
have heard that rumor. Yeah, I saw
Right.
that somewhere a while ago.
I think that's not true because it's crazy. Um,
Like a
well,
fox.
really, you think that's a good idea?
No, no. I mean, what would it? Why would you just not have an Xbox? As long as if they could get, the only like the newer Xboxes aren't even that loud. So,
Well, I guess the idea would be is if a new console launches at $500,
oh,
they
well,
could
that's true.
100 for this box,
Yeah.
but why not just sell the 360 for 100? They're already selling it for two. I'm sure they could cut corners and get it down to
The
one.
only reason I would think that they would need to do that is if they were doing enough of a platform shift, like I mean a hardware platform shift, that they needed to rewrite a bunch of the apps and they just thought, we don't want to maintain a PowerPC version and an Intel version or something like that. And so they said, we'll just make a little mini Atom-based box
Yeah,
that'll
and in
just be
terms
a
of
live box. We'll call it the Xbox Live, and all it does is access live.
in terms of platforms, I have a feeling the PS4 and the Xbox are going to be very similar.
And you know what, dude? If they sold an Xbox Live edition that was $100 and it played all of the content of it, because Netflix is nice on the Xbox, and I could get indie games like Fez. All right, I might buy that over the regular Xbox.
Wow.
First of all, I mean,
You're not a console gamer though.
well, no, I'm not a Microsoft guy. I came from an era where Microsoft was the bad guy.
Well,
I don't like giving them all my money all the time, but I'm trying to get over that.
I was a huge PS3 fan, but the glitches in the PS3 games got to me.
Oh.
Like, and that's really what switched me this generation. Like, because
Well,
I
the
started with
360
an
is
X.
nice. It's
Yeah,
a good product.
Wow, every game I had on the PS3, great example, Skyrim. You run in the water, it crashes the console.
Ooh.
Depending on, it didn't happen.
That's like a recent game?
Skyrim.
Yeah, that's like the new movie game.
That's last year. Skyrim, the Elder Scrolls Skyrim.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, the dragons flew backwards. I mean, the PS3 always got the DLC last. It always had bugs. It was always. I mean, that's a product of Sony going with a very different, some would say, superior architecture, and all developers being incredibly lazy and not really, porting to it properly. But I just don't want to deal with that. Plus, I like XBLA.
As a user, but not as a developer.
Well, their policies aren't, yeah. I mean, one of my predictions is that they're going to open it up a little bit.
All right. I'd be down for that.
I mean, it's not going to be App Store open. It's still going to be thousands of dollars to get in.
No, they do need the money, man.
Yeah.
All right. Any other predictions in there?
I think I'm all right. I
Doom and gloom for Sony in that prediction is the subtext of your prediction.
no,
by
I
the
don't
way.
think it's.
It kind of is, man. It kind of
You think
is. The PlayStation era might be over, is kind of what you're saying.
No, because I think they made a mistake last generation, and I think they're going to fix it.
How do you fix it? What do you fix?
Well, instead of trying to be different, they just do what they. Nintendo and Sega used to be very on par with each other. This last generation is really the first time there's been such a radical differentiation between the two competing consoles.
Yeah.
I mean, Sony was using that cell processing architecture, very different, but it's just not a business reality.
So this is your last chance to go on record on Firefox OS. You say fail.
Fail.
All right. Okay. I agree. But I think maybe in Asia it's a success. I'm hedging my bets that way. I know.
Oh, you're so afraid.
don't know. You know what it is? It's not afraid. It's that I hope it is a success. I want it to be. And that hope, I think, sort of affects my judgment sometimes.
I have a prediction for the show.
What's that?
The show turns into the Firefox OS hour.
I have a prediction. People need to get out of their holiday hangover and send us some emails and their thoughts. CoderRadio@JupiterBroadcasting.com. Send us in some questions. You know what it is we're not giving them specifics to email us about. We're being too general.
Well, I also replied to a number of them.
You do, actually. You're very nice like that. And, people can also follow you online in various other locations, can't they?
Follow me on Twitter @Dumanuko and on Google Plus @my_name.
And we'll have links to those in the show notes as well as my profiles. Now, the show is live Mondays at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern over at jblive.tv. We'd love it if you join us and chat along in our chat room. And sometimes you get to help name the show even if you suggest a title. And that's always a lot of fun. And then, of course, the show is available for downloads later on Monday over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Coder Radio. We'll see you right back here next week. And Happy New Year's!